Welcome to Horn Takes Live. I am your host, Sean Redfern, and joining me once again, we got Mike Hardball Hardge of AM 1300 The Zones, the morning kickoff. Hardge, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to be here again. Last time we talked, it was right before the college football semifinal, and Texas came up a little bit short. And there's a lot to be desired, and I can't wait to see what happens during the season next year. But we're here. We're transitioning. We're in the middle of baseball. I mean, not baseball, but basketball for men's and women. We're getting ready for track. We're getting ready for softball. But of course, you brought me on because you wanted to talk a little hardball with
That's right,
hardball.
man. I always want to talk hardball with hardball, but before we do that, I do have to talk about this football game just a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about y'all's experience there at the Cotton Bowl and just maybe some takeaways you had coming away from that game. It was a tough loss.
Obviously, it was a tough loss, but we had a great time. The fan base showed up. They showed out. Obviously, it was a tough time because of weather, and we didn't know what was going to end up happening. But a lot of folks showed out. We were at Boomer Jacks, right across the street from the stadium, so it was packed. A lot of fun times, but obviously, Texas fans were a little bit disappointed. A lot of it disappointed because of the fact that you thought that this was your best team to get to the championship game. Everything was kind of set up for you that way and come up a little bit short. And I took away from it that the team always had some fight into it. They always showed up. And as a Texas fan, you got to be proud because it's easy to look at the loss and say, why didn't we win or what happened? But you also got to look at it and say, well, we were right there to be able to win the game because there's some teams that look like they got blown out, and they did get blown out, so they wouldn't have even been in the matchup. But all in all, it's a disappointing season, but I can't say it was a bad season because Texas being in the semifinal again and having an opportunity, and you look back on it, and Texas being the only team that was in the college football playoff 2 years ago. It was the only one to get into it, even with an expanded field. You got to be pretty proud as a Texas Longhorn fan.
Yeah, I kind of echo your sentiment about it being. It was kind of a mixed bag of a season, right? You got to be excited because they made it to the semifinals, made it to the college football playoff for the second year in a row. Also, really heartbreaking. I was talking to CJ Vogel of On Texas Football and talking to Eric Henry of Horns 24/7. We had a big conversation about the game, and yeah, man, it was disappointing. But the team did fight. And you kind of nailed that. This team, this program has really gone from a place where, in a lot of these types of games that they've been in over the course of the last couple years, they would have laid down and died, and they would have just took
Absolutely.
it. And they battled to the very end. Didn't turn out how we wanted it. A lot's been talked about the goal line. The goal line play calling and the just the way that whole thing went down. What's your take
Yeah,
on all that? I've seen a lot of people's opinions on the play calling or the execution or what have you. What do you think about that whole deal?
I think it's a combination of both. I think it is the play calling. I think it is the execution. But more importantly, put your team in a chance that if you're on the goal line, there's no reason why we can't run four tush pushes, quarterback sneaks, or whatever it may be to get yourself into that end zone. This is a do or die situation. You're trying to get to the next level, and you got to put it in your playmakers' hands. And on the outside, that's not it. And if you got to call a timeout to get your team rallied or anything like that, look, it's easy to play quarterback from the
Right,
couch. It's easy to be the armchair quarterback. I get it. And I understand. And Sark has forgotten more football than we'll ever
right.
know. But the fact of the matter is, when you look at the eye test and the simplicity of the game, and you have an offensive line that has been up for the Joe Moore Award that rewards you for being the best offensive line in the ball game. Put it on them, going straight forward, mano a mano. If you got to pull Kyle Flood to the side, and say, hey, you need to tell them, God dog it, use every slang, cuss, whatever you want to do. We got to punch this ball into the end zone. That's what it needed to happen, and it didn't happen. And now we can all second guess it. We're all going to have these debates. We're going to call Sark a bad play caller within the goal lines and all these different things. And you opened yourself up for that conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just interesting to hear where people sit. I wasn't a big fan of the second down call. I think the second down call could have worked. I think what really got us in really bad shape on that second down call was when we motioned across, when Juan Davis motioned across the formation, that safety comes with him. And at that point, we're outnumbered. And we should have someone should have said, stop, like either motion Juan Davis back across the field. Yeah, or take a timeout, whatever it is.
Like I said, take that timeout, reset, go back to the conversation and say, all right, we just saw a guy run across our face.
Right.
That is about to turn up the field regardless. That's his job. Sell out to the pitch side because that's what he saw on film. Yeah, I'm with you.
We won't go in it. We won't talk about that too much, man.
I'm like, why you got me
man,
fired
it'll
up,
just hurt. It'll just hurt too much. But I had to get some cope time with you, Hardge. I've coped with some other guys, but I had to get some cope time with Hardge. Preseason number one. There's a lot of folks way too early, top 25s, talking about preseason number one for this Texas Longhorn team next season. How reasonable do you think that is?
I think that's unreasonable. I really look at it as another way for the fodder to get people hyped up, to get the Texas fans, because Vegas knows and everybody knows, let's get there. Oh, we got Arch Manning. And I'm like, pump your freaking brakes, dude. Like, I really get to the point sometimes of fandom that it really turns me off. And I don't want to be the jaded, I don't want to be the jaded media guy. I don't. I try to put it in perspective. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of folks are thinking that he's the Messiah, like he's going to come in and do no wrong. And like he is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I hope he is, because he's been here, he's learned, he's matured, he's been around the game. But Black Jesus struggle. Vince Young. You know what I'm saying? Like, Chance Mock was the starting quarterback at one point. And people forget that. And Chance was a damn good quarterback.
Parade All-American.
Exactly. I'm a big, big believer in Chance. I also was a big believer. Let's not forget about the controversy with Major Applewhite and Chris Sims. Like, they all struggled. It's a real thing. Everybody thinks that he's just going to come in because he threw a few bombs. Let's not forget, during the spring game, when Quinn got here, he threw a bomb to Isaiah Nair. Everybody was like, look at Quinn throwing them bombs. And then everybody's perspective changed. The thing that bothers me the most is the reality of the position of quarterback and the fake hustle people in the stands that, oh, he's about to change this whole program. I was talking to a guy, and I know we're going to talk baseball, I get it. But I was talking to a guy the other day. I was in a line, we were getting food, and a gentleman asked me, and this was a friend of mine's son, and he's like, Hardge, I know you talk about this every day, but I need to get your ear for a minute. And the gentleman behind me heard us talking and was like, man, Arch is that guy. And I was like, what makes you say that? Like, what makes you say that? Is it his last name? Is it because you saw him against UTSA? Is it what makes you, oh man, he's gonna get this big play and get this big play? And I'm like, but you're not talking to me about the game. Talk to me about the game. Because Arch himself has said, yeah, me playing against UTSA and Louisiana Monroe, where I struggled against Louisiana Monroe, let's not forget. And the game speed against Georgia is totally different than what I've seen because I played at XA school and it's a little bit different. It's like people forget that this guy had to develop. Yes, he's very talented and I think he's going to do amazing things. But when are y'all going to start booing him? Not you, but when are they going to start booing him?
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
And trying to figure out when Trey Owens about to be in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
game or Lacey. You know what I'm saying? KJ
yeah.
Lacey.
Yeah, someone tweeted after the Quinn Ewers announcement that he was going to go into the draft, that Trey Owens just became the most popular quarterback in Austin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah, I mean,
It's true.
yeah, I'm with you on that. I think people I'm kind of torn on that too because I think yeah, we're replacing a lot. 8 starters on offense. 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen. 2 of the top receivers are headed out. 2 of the most talented ones for sure. I think
2 of the top offensive linemen that possibly can be
yeah,
first round
absolutely.
picks that they're still mad at because he keeps getting false
Right,
starts.
exactly. So
you know what I'm saying?
Gunnar Helm's out. So I mean, there's a lot of pieces that are going to be gone from the offense. The one thing I keep going back to though, and I was talking with having the same conversation with CJ Vogel, and he said the thing we all got to remember is, Ohio State's losing a lot of people too. Georgia's losing a lot of people too, and I think it's gonna take an adjustment period for all of us guys that kind of watch this stuff every year. Used to, you could say 8 starters are out. This offense is not going to be very good, and maybe this team's not going to be very good because of that. I think now in this modern era where players are moving around so much and guys there's just no depth anywhere, and so when players leave, everybody's kind of trying to figure out like, well, what do we do next? So I think most of these teams are kind of in the same shape that we're in terms of having a lot of bodies that they depended on headed out the door. And so it's kind of going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. I think number one, kind of nuts, but I certainly think this is a top 5 team probably by the end of the year. Now, I don't know what's going to happen at the beginning. I kind of think we might see some growing pains. I don't, a lot of people are all easy money on this minus or this plus 4.5 up at Ohio State. And maybe it is. I just kind of think maybe that's, just kind of wishful thinking maybe, because I don't know how you really judge. You haven't seen a single snap of the new offense yet. I think the defense is going to be fine. They're losing some people, but they still got guys at every level, and they played a whole hell of a lot of people last year on defense. So a lot of guys contributed to a really good defense. So I think the defense is going to be really good. And so maybe that's good enough to keep them in games while that offense kind of finds itself and heads into, further into the schedule in 2025. I think the one key offensively, though, is to find some identity in the running game, because I don't think they had it in 2024. And I'm not just talking about being able to go run the ball. I'm talking about we're this type of running team. Like some teams are just, I'm this type of run. I'm a power running team, or we're a zone running team. We just did a whole bunch of stuff. It was never very. It didn't ever seem like it was the same every weekend. It seemed like it was different even sometimes when different backs came in the game. Like just the whole thing changed. And I don't think you can do that to an offensive line, and I don't think you can do that to one that's coming in with not a lot of experience. I think there's a lot of talent. There's a couple of guys that have played quite a bit coming back, but other than that, it's a lot of guys that haven't got a whole lot of run. So it'll be interesting to see, how all that plays out. We're going to Columbus. We decided the other day we're going to Columbus. So we hope to see all you folks in Columbus. But I don't know, man. I can't pass up a chance to go to the shoe. But I will have like this kind of impending doom until we kick it off in Columbus. I'll just be like, man, I don't know what to expect. All that being said, who knows what happens between now and August, what is it, August 29th, August 30th, in the transfer portal and things like that. A lot of guys just jumped in the portal from Notre Dame on that offensive line. So anyway, man, I didn't mean to.
Well, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing to me is like no disrespect to what CJ's talking about with all these other people. But the reality is that nobody gives a damn about those other teams.
Right.
They care about
that's
Texas.
fair. That's fair.
You know what I'm saying? So You can sit there and look at it and say, "Oh, well, this team and this team lost people." Don't matter. What is Texas going
Yeah.
to do? Because we always talk about blocking out the noise, right? And the comparisons of everything. The fact of the matter is, you don't know what you don't know until they get on the
Right.
field and actually
Yeah, I
play.
think that's fair.
Period.
I think that's absolutely fair. But man, football's just kind of gotten so speculative. You know, you see it a lot in the NFL. You see guys get drafted on speculation, just sort of on what they might be able to go do. They'll pass up on a guy
Right.
that plays really well on the field, and he can play on the field.
And you've seen all the
Yeah,
film on him, and you've seen all the film, but yet he runs a 4.2. Let's
yep,
go
yeah.
get
You
him.
got to get that guy.
He
So
runs a 4.4. Oh, he can go get it. He can stretch the field. Really? Because he ain't caught a pass in a college
yeah, yeah,
game. And he been running 4.4 for a long
yeah.
time.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. All right, Parge, man. I didn't mean to get you all fired up on Thursday night, so we're gonna move on.
You did,
I
dog.
know,
You
man.
did.
We're gonna move on to some 2025 Texas Longhorn baseball. And Harge, I got to go back to a conversation that you and I had. I think it was like the Thursday before the College World Series started last year. It was certainly those few days ahead of the College World Series starting. All the noise, all the smoke about Jim Schlossnagle possibly being the next head coach from Texas. And I told you straight up, there is no way in hell Jim Schlossnagle is going to be the next head coach. It just makes no sense. Sure as shit, a few days later, Jim Schlossnagle, the head coach at Texas, take us back there and just talk to us about your thoughts as all that was kind of playing out. And I got to tell you, I woke up that day and they said Jim Schlossnagle, the new head coach at Texas. You couldn't have seen a jaw drop any further than my reaction to all that. What were you thinking during all that?
I was all in on it. I kind of knew that was going to happen, regardless of what happened at the College World Series. Right? There was an opportunity. You had just lost Coach Pierce, great coach at Texas, come up short, ended up making the move, and I kept saying. And a matter of fact, I told you, I said, I think it's gonna happen. And you're like, there's no way they're playing for a
Yeah.
championship. And I was like, relationships are important in life, man. Relationships are important in life. And I always revert back to the one day Coach Schloss was like, the fans were so unruly at Texas A&M to his
Yeah.
players. And he said, if this is the way it's going to be, man, I don't know. And it was
Mhm.
early. And then the season goes on. They continue to get better. They win all these big matchups. They end up getting to the College World Series, and things just was not right. You know, when Trevor Alberts told him, that conversation that they had, and I'm like, your dude is in the College
Yeah.
World Series, man. You need to be encouraging him because he's the best you
He's
got
one of the
in
he's one of the
sport.
best in the country.
But not only that, at Texas A&M, he's got your team playing for a championship, and you're not giving him the vote of
Yeah, yeah,
confidence.
that was crazy. I do remember you. I do
Uh,
remember you talking about that conversation, and yeah, that was a crazy couple weeks. I was on with Mark from Occupy Left Field last night, man, and we talked about this, and I kind of asked him, I was kind of talking about how CDC has kind of had some pretty cooey like hires in his time here. Stark wasn't a coup, but it
yeah,
was very unexpected. I felt like I don't think there was a whole lot of noise about even
there was
Tom
not.
Herman not being the coach. In
There was
fact,
not.
he said a couple weeks before that, like, Tom Herman's my guy. He's going to lead us into the future, all that good stuff. And then all of a sudden, bam, Steve Sarkisian's the head coach. You got the meeting at the whatever the hell, the McDonald's in the middle of the
Chris
Panhandle with
Beard.
Chris
Yeah.
Beard
Yep.
and pulls him out of Texas Tech. So CDC very good at keeping things under wraps while he's doing all these things. And these things take time. And I think that's pretty impressive. That he's able to work through these processes without a lot of overt smoke. the smoke with Schloss was enough that like it got you thinking, but it was never so much that you were like, this is going to happen. It was just kind of like an internet rumor almost.
Right.
And so I asked Mark, I said, which one's the bigger coup, Chris Beard or Schloss? And he 100% said Schloss. And I don't think I can disagree. You stole your biggest rival's head coach right out from under him the day after they lost in the finals. That's about as gangster as it gets as far as athletic directing goes, I feel like. So big
Yep.
coup. You got the whole coaching staff coming in from Texas A&M minus the hitting coach. And man, Mark told me his name last night, and I forgot it already. Again, I'm terrible with names. You should know that by now. But the guy stays back at A&M or comes then leaves. He's the head coach now, and they bring Tulo back in. How big of a deal is getting Tulo back in there for this baseball team?
Well, first off, I think the entire staff is top notch. I think everybody's done an amazing job of getting everybody in the right places. Having Tulo around, a guy that's now on the Hall of Fame ballot and somebody that needs to be discussed at higher length, but being able to educate players on the game, the approach at the plate, the way you need to position yourself on defense, just the science of the game. I think it can't be understated how important that is. Schlossnagle being able to come into the program and really leave his mark, whether it's some of the guys he's gotten in the transfer portal, some of the guys that he's inherited, being able to recruit. Everybody always talks about Mac Brown's biggest recruiting uh, job was Ricky Williams, right? Well, I think the biggest recruiting job for Coach Schlossnagle was Max Ballou, being able to keep him because obviously everybody was coming to get him. And he's a guy that was warranted of whatever he may or may not have gotten on the open market, especially in this day and age. So I think that Max Ballou may be Coach Schloss's Ricky Williams. I think it's pretty cool. But at the end of the day, you start looking at this baseball team and how it's constructed and the pieces that Coach Schloss was able to go get, who he retained, what is he looking for. I think this team is set up to be deadly in the future, not only because of who they are, but the knowledge that Coach Schloss has put in that dugout.
Absolutely. I'm gonna cover you up for a second. I think. Yeah, it's gonna cover you up. Sorry, man. You're prettier than I am, but that's
So,
just the way it goes. Yeah, you can see. Yeah,
going
you
this
can
way
get
for
it. You can get
yeah,
in right.
yeah.
So here's the projected starters by D1 baseball, and you mentioned Max Ballou. Looking at that outfield, you got Max Ballou, you got Gaspo that from all accounts has put on some good weight in this offseason. He came in a really tall, lanky, really talented kid. Now maybe he's a really tall, big, talented kid, and you always can deal with that behind the plate or at the plate rather. Easton Winfield comes in from Louisiana Monroe, a really good left fielder. And then you got all the guys you've heard of besides Ethan Mendoza, who transfers in for Arizona State. You got your Kimball Schusler, Jalen Flores, Adrian Rodriguez, Rylan Galvan behind the dish, and then Casey Borba, who's kind of a utility guy and kind of a guy I thought might end up on third base this year. Play a little more third base. He looks like he may be the DH, and you got Adrian Rodriguez, true freshman there on the 3 bag. So lots of familiar faces on the offensive and fielding side of the ball. The pitching staff, though, not a lot going on there in terms of guys coming back. And I mean, I did the math. It's we got 52% of the innings pitched last season are actually back. So huge rebuilding job for that Max Wiener arm farm. You played a lot of baseball, man. You're an ex-pro baseball player, really highly rated draft pick, number 2, right, in the MLB draft. Number 2 in the MLB draft. So,
Second round.
So you've been there. How quickly can you turn around a pitching staff?
Oh, easily. I mean, because that's the work that they put in. And they've also went out and got arms that have got experience. guys that have actually been on the bump and been able to throw the baseball, guys.
Uh-oh. We lost Hardge. Let's get him back in here.
Oh,
We got you back, man. There you
all
go.
right. Whoa. Guys that have actually been out there and actually done it. So this Texas staff is going to be in good faith, because that's one thing that Coach Sloss understands. When you're going into the SEC and you're facing those lineups day in and day out, people don't understand it because of the fact that we talk about football and that week to week, every day, you got to be locked in. Same thing with basketball. We're seeing it men's and women's. Now you're seeing it in baseball, and Coach Schlossnagle will be the first to tell you we've got a media availability tomorrow, and I guarantee you what you're going to hear throughout the media availability is the fact of every single weekend it is a College World Series matchup. It is a super regional matchup because you want to win the series. You want to go at least 2 out of 3 for that weekend. But other teams are thinking the same thing. Think about the LSUs. Think about the Mississippi States. Think about all of the teams, South Carolina. I mean, those are the teams that you're going to be facing every single night. So, Coach understood, okay, I've got to have this type of arm to perform on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We'll figure out Tuesday. But right now, we need Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to be able to go out there and dominate.
Yeah, you mentioned the schedule and just sort of, the grind. Everybody talks about the SEC grind in football. I always go back to this conversation I had with Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered 2 years ago. He brings me on his show and says, let's talk about, Texas to the SEC. And we get to talking about football, which is rightfully so. We all knew that was going to be great having Texas and Oklahoma move to an already really rich tradition-wise conference. A lot of blue buds, a lot of dominance in college football up to that point. But I said, Chris, man, the college baseball is going to be better than the college football. And you look at Texas's schedule, they've got Florida coming in, they've got LSU coming in, they've got Texas A&M coming in. They got to go on the road to Arkansas, on the road to Mississippi State. They're every single weekend, once they hit SEC conference play, is a super regional type deal. And those are going to be a lot of teams out of that bunch that are going to be in super regionals. And a lot of teams and programs out of that bunch have done that, regionals, super regionals, all those types of things for multiple years in a row. I don't the grind, and I think basketball is probably getting there to this point. Like I keep hearing a lot of good things about SEC basketball, even though, again, I'm not a huge basketball guy, but sounds like the basketball is really good in the SEC right now. But man, the baseball, just unbelievable. They're starting to go on a kind of run that the football went on starting about 10 years ago in baseball now, where just championship after champion. I mean, you're seeing SEC teams playing each other in the College World Series finals all the time now. And so maybe not all the time, but it's happened, and it continues to happen. So yeah, man, I think like you said, having those arms and having some consistency, that's one thing we didn't see last year out of this pitching staff at all. Some days those guys would come out and do really well. Other days they'd come out and they'd struggle. They may pitch 2 or 3. One of the guys that I absolutely love, we talked about him all the time, LeBaron Johnson, LBJ, man, loved LBJ. Man, he'd go 2 or 3 innings of just beautiful pitching, and then all of a sudden, like, the wheels would just come off for him. And we saw that a lot. And it wasn't just LBJ; it was a lot of the guys last year on that staff. So I think being able to just come in and trust what you got on your arm, trust your stuff, trust your pitches, trust that the coaching staff is putting you in the right position with whatever pitching calls they're making, and just executing and doing it somewhat consistently is going to be a huge key in 2025. Hardge, I think this team has an opportunity to be a pretty good power team. I was looking at the stats earlier today. If you look at that lineup that we just posted up there, the projected starters, 83 home runs from those guys last season as a whole, all combined, even with the transfers and everything. not eye popping, right? But a lot of those guys didn't play the whole season either. A lot of those guys were in and out of the lineup. Casey Borba was a guy that didn't play a ton last year. Played pretty consistently, I think, but just wasn't always there. Could this team? Could this? I ask you. I'm going to ask you this every year till it happens. Can this team break 128? They cannot
No,
break
I
20.
don't think they'll break. Yeah, but the one thing that I will always look at is how they run. How do they do the fundamental things? How do they move guys and drive in runs? If they can go there and do that, because of what you said, it doesn't have to be gorilla ball in the SEC because there's so much talent that is there. If they play good defense, which I think that they're going to do, and if they can go out there and manufacture runs every single game. Yes, you got Max Ballou, who was the Big 12 Player of the Year. You got Jalen Flores. Both of those two guys are preseason All-Americans by D1 baseball. You start looking at some of the guys that you brought in, like a Easton Winfield. Those guys, and Will Gasparino will hit a ball a
Mm-hmm.
mile. And, he's just got to run into them. But the most important part of it is you got to be able to throw strikes and you got to be able to play defense. And I think Texas will be put in a position to where, they're going to be able to throw strikes and they're going to be able to play clean defense. If they can do that, they're going to be in a lot of ball games. It's easy. It's easy to go up to the plate and try to yank a ball out of the ballpark. But it's more important to be able to manufacture a run in a situation to where you need it. And I believe Coach Schlossnagle will have these guys ready to do so.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting point. I think that's one of the things offensively that's kind of hurt this team the last 2 years, last 2 seasons was that they couldn't manufacture runs. It was kind of boom or
Right.
bust, man. They get the ball out of the park, and some of those guys would get hot, and when they got hot, man, they were a tough team to beat. But that's all they could do. There wasn't a lot of extra base hitting. There wasn't a lot of, hey, we got this guy at second. Let me just dink one into the outfield and let's get this guy home. Not a lot of the fundamental things that you would like to see out of a baseball team. But I think you're right. I think Schloss knows baseball, and I'm really excited to see what him and that staff can do. And I think like the arm farm with Coach Max Wiener, man, that is the thing that I am the most excited to see. Like, can we get back to that? I mean, I remember a few years ago with Augie Garrido, man, Texas pitching was just dominant. I mean, you couldn't hit those guys.
Yeah.
And so, they'd win games like 3-2 and 3-1 and stuff like that. And we've gotten away from that. I'm really excited to see if Max Wiener can bring some of that back and how quickly he can bring some of that back. What do you think? What do you like? We're talking preseason baseball. We haven't seen the alumni game. You might have seen some of the fall stuff. I certainly haven't.
Yeah.
Most fans have not. What do you think is going to be the biggest surprise for this 2025 baseball team? What should we fans be looking for out of this team in 2025? Just something that maybe has caught your eye so far.
How well they run the bases. I mean, you got to be able to move. Like I said, you're going to be able to move guys around, but you got to be able to run as well. I mean, if you can run and hit a ball in the gap, that's going to change the dynamic of a game. That's going to put a lot of stress on the pitching staff. So I wouldn't be surprised to see how well they run. Pay attention to that. And also the way that Coach Schloss controls the baseball game. He's an old guy. I mean, he's a baseball guy. Let's just say that. So he understands the dynamics of the game, when to throw over, when to pitch out. How do you hold a guy on first that has the speed to be able to be first to third? Those things right there are the true essence of the ball game. Those are the elements that I always look for. How do you go into the game and make sure that your guys are put in a position to be in the game, no matter who they're playing against? You have to be able to put them in a ball game to where they're going to be able to gain confidence. I think, too, to your point about the power, I think gap to gap is going to be the key for this team. But most importantly, strike zone. How are you going to be able to deliver the ball and pound the strike zone? I was talking to a buddy of mine today. He's a scout for a professional team, and he's like a national cross checker. And one of the things that I've always talked to him about is Why is it that you guys are always looking at the arms and making sure that they throw a certain mile per hour, but y'all aren't paying attention to the strike zone anymore? I think that's the biggest thing for Texas. I don't care how hard you throw strikes and let your defense play behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be looking for that. I'll be looking for the running because I like the running game, man. I like to run the people out of the stadium. I think you like old Augie Ball, you know, he'd lay the bunts down and get people running. It really does put a lot of pressure on defenses and forces them to make simple plays over and over again. And it's kind of like on offense in football, if you can make an offense, try to go down the field in small chunks, they start to make mistakes. Same kind of concept with getting the ball in play and running on in baseball. So put some odds on it, however you want to do it, 0 to 10 percentage, whatever works for you, Hardge. Is this team a College World Series team?
I think this team can definitely be a College World Series team. And the reason why I say this team can be is because of leadership. I believe that this team also has a lot of guys that understand what the game is all about. I've learned a lot from Coach Schlossnagle because I've spent some time with him. And I've been able, by the way, he will be on our show, the morning kickoff, every Thursday in the baseball season at 8 a.m. So he'll be on with us talking baseball every Thursday during the baseball season at 8 a.m. Central Time. Because I know you got a lot of people that listen to you all over the place, bro. So
Yeah.
I want to make
You
sure
know I'm going to plug you up.
yeah, I got to make sure I got you too. So just know that our conversations throughout the season are going to be a lot about what this team's number one, what their opponents are going to be, but most importantly, how you're not necessarily going to approach them, but where are the improvement areas, right? So I've spent some time with him, and again, like I've said, he's a baseball junkie. He understands the nuances, he understands the changes in the game. But the game is a simple game because of the fundamental part of it. And he will never, ever, ever lose that. You got to be able to hit it. You got to be able to catch it. You got to be able to throw it. And you also got to make sure that your team is in the position of understanding situational baseball. If you can play situational baseball, no matter how big your opponent is or how far they can hit a baseball, they don't do the fundamental stuff, it's going to hurt them. So I'll be curious to see what the fundamental aspect continues to be moving forward.
Outstanding, Harsh. Well, I appreciate you coming on tonight. I'm going to get you out of here. I know you were watching that baseball game, or that basketball game. Thank you for taking some time with us tonight. You can just drop off whenever you need to, Harsh, but I'm going to plug you up. I'm going to plug me up, and then we're going to get out of here. You guys follow Hardball on Twitter at Hardball Hardge. It's on the screen right now. You can't miss it, right under my big ugly head. And then tune in to the morning kickoff with Hardge and Big Mark Henry, World's Strongest Man. They do that Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time on 1300 a.m. The Zone. You don't even have to twist a dial. You can get it on the internet. I do it all the time. Good show. They do a lot of good stuff. And then I'm excited to hear about Thursdays with Coach Schloss at 8 a.m. I'll definitely be tuning into that. You guys can follow us at TikTok, Twitter, all that good stuff. You can follow me, Sean Redfern, on Twitter now, right there in front of you on the screen. I'm also very excited to announce that I have got the opportunity to be a contributor for baseball and football on SEC Unfiltered. So you'll be able to go to secunfiltered.com and find some of my writings. I'm not a writer, but I will be writing. And I already put a piece out there. You guys should go check it out. It'll be under the little Longhorn tab at the top of the screen on SEC Unfiltered, secunfiltered.com. So check us out at all those places. Again, Hardge, we appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. You guys have a good one.
I got you, brother.